Hi friend, and welcome back to Marvelous Friends, your home for all things Marvel Cinematic Universe and beyond. I'm Rhett, and today I am going to be giving my 5 and 5 review for the third season of Jessica Jones. Roll that credit. Last week, if you followed the channel, I posted all my summaries and thoughts regarding each of the individual episodes of Season 3 of Jessica Jones. You can check out that playlist up here in the card. Now, each of these episodes, I did kind of go over the general plot and then kind of broke down what I thought were the major aspects and what I could think that these would mean regarding the season moving forward. But the time has come for me to give you my final thoughts of everything I liked and disliked regarding the season in my 5 and 5 review. For those who have not seen one of these videos on my channel before, basically what I do for my reviews of a movie, or in this case a season of a TV show, I give you my 5 favorite and 5 least favorite things regarding the season. Now, this is my first time applying this structure to a TV show, and considering I have already talked about several of the aspects already regarding the season, it'll be very interesting to see how this structure applies to this format. But let's give it a go. I'm going to start from the bottom and give my 5 least favorite aspects of the season first, followed by my 5 favorite. Let's get into it. Number 5, where did Veto go? Now, I will say I don't really understand why this character was introduced if nothing was going to come from it in this season. Now, Vito, of course, is the little boy and son of Oscar who Jessica was seeing during the events of Season 2. Now, we did get some resolution on Oscar specifically in the second episode from Trish's point of view, where we see Jessica and him kind of officially breaking up. But Vito played a very kind of interesting role in the first episode and was slightly referenced a couple of times throughout the season, yet he never makes another appearance. I just don't really understand why he was introduced at all in the season if he wasn't really going to be used. They could have simply just done the whole breakup sequence with Oscar in that second episode and given us kind of closure on both of these characters. However, when you introduced him kind of at the very beginning of the season, it kind of makes him seem like he might be a player in the story. And then I was just kind of wondering the entire rest of the time, what happened to him, where did he go, and why have we not seen him again after that initial point? Number 4, resolution. Jessica Jones Season 3 was not only under a lot of pressure to wrap up her story, but act as a bookend for all the Marvel Netflix endeavors as a whole. And in my opinion, it did just fall a little bit short. Now, as I kind of have thought about this and kind of had time to reflect on the series, I have lowered this down on my list of my least favorite things. When I first left the final episode and watching that, I really kind of felt that this would be my number 1 thing I didn't like. Kind of feeling that the whole idea of Jessica staying left more open than it did close. I still do feel that probably her leaving for Mexico would have ended the story much more in a hard closing of the book way, really showing her ending her time as a hero in New York City. With her staying, that offers a lot more questions as to what is next for her journey as a hero in NYC. I also, of course, want to know more about some of the other characters, as we kind of didn't get full resolution for them either. Well, specifically, I want to know more about Malcolm, Jillian, and Eric, the characters I liked. Number 3, Unfollowed Leads. Now, this, I think, is what played into my disliking of the resolution of the series, is because there was some unanswered questions that I was kind of tagging along through the entire show, wondering when they would pop back up. Now, 2 perfect examples of this are the recording of Salinger in his apartment that we got in the earlier part of the season, as well as Sal Blankowski, the bookkeeper, and her ties with Eric. Now, the recording was something that got a lot of very careful and attentive framing in the initial conversation between Jessica and Salinger when she's exploring his apartment at the first half of the season. We see her very deliberately record the conversation, and I feel that this recording would have been at least some kind of substantial proof to point fingers at Salinger's involvement in all these murders. And when we heard that Jessica had some additional evidence that could potentially put him away and tie him to the murders, I was 100% sure that this was it. Yet it turned out she didn't have anything, and she needed to stage her own kidnapping and murder ritual for her to actually gain that proof that she needed. So this recording was one of those things that just never came back up, and I was like, why did we receive such intent knowledge that she recorded that conversation if nothing's going to come from it? Likewise, Sal Blankowski never popped back up, as I thought she would be a considerable problem for Trish, who put her in the hospital, and Eric, who most likely would be receiving the blame for that interaction with Trish on her early trek to become a superhero. Yet, again, nothing came from this, and I'm wondering why at all this was kind of dealt the way it was. It could have been easily a moment where we see Trish get Eric out of there and nothing else comes from it, but there was serious consequences here that never seemed to receive that resolution that I believe that it should have in the season as a whole. Number 2, the good versus evil scale within the theme of the season. Most great pieces of entertainment and literature, film, what have you, has some kind of deeper context and theme behind it that leaves us as an audience kind of taking away something deeper from the story. Now, a lot of times, though, this is done very subtly and orchestrated through very careful metaphor within the show, leaving us to draw our own conclusions about that theme. However, Season 3 of Jessica Jones beat that theme into us like a dead horse. Now, this was done over and over again through dialogue that was constantly reiterating this idea of a sliding scale, or am I good, or is it evil? All this over and over again. And plus, we received the embodiment of that scale through a retelling of Eric Gelden, aka Mindwave. Now, I did enjoy the character, but his use in this manner just kind of made him seem lesser, considering how obvious this attempt at theming in a subtext to the show really was. And I was left kind of hating the constant references to this theme rather than enjoying the potential ideals that this could have presented behind the story of the show as a whole. Number 1, Hellcat. Now, if you watched my summaries and breakdowns of each of the episodes, you will really know my frustration when it came to Hellcat, specifically her power set. Now, of course, adaptations and changes to a character from the comics to film or TV in this case are always something that happens within the MCU. This is to provide us something new and interesting. However, there was such a strange departure from Hellcat that really kind of bothered me in her constant contradiction. Now, the power contradiction was not only limited to her, but it was most blatant in her character, with her often kind of leaving us to question what her exact powers were. Of course, we knew she had this night vision, and she had the ability to always land on her feet, but there it kind of stopped, whereas we saw her really struggle to adapt to having agility and being able to be slightly acrobatic like Hellcat is naturally in the comics. We also know that she also has a version of super strength in the comics, and receiving the same serum that both Jessica Jones and her mother received that gave them super strength. It really seemed kind of questionable that she herself did not receive some level of super strength herself when exposed to that same experimental serum. And on top of that, I just really had an issue with Hellcat. I understand that you're really trying to develop her as an anti-hero and sub-villain for this season, but I just really did not like how she was handled, taking her normal kind of annoying character traits from her previous 2 seasons of involvement with the story to a whole nother level that was just mind-blowingly irritating and made me really hate this character. Alright, let's move on to the positive notes of the season, starting with number 5, Luke Cage's cameo. Now, I will put this at number 5 because I was not 100% happy with it, but I did enjoy seeing some of our other defenders pop up in the show. Well, this singular defender. Like I said, this show not only ended the series of Jessica Jones, but also acted as an end cap for all the Netflix Marvel partnership deals as a whole, with only Jessica and Daredevil receiving their 3rd series. Something that I will mention quite often throughout my videos is that most stories within the MCU receive a trilogy story arc, and most of these characters do not receive that, with Punisher, Luke Cage, and Iron Fist only receiving 2 each. Now, this allowed for us to kind of get some resolution on Luke Cage and where he ended up, and it did make most sense out of all of them for him to show up, referencing again his involvement in the 1st season of Jessica Jones when we first meet him. So I guess we could kind of consider Luke Cage to have received 3 seasons, considering he did play a major part in season 1 of Jessica Jones, and then had 2 seasons of his own. However, I would have liked to see more of the Defenders. I would have thought it would have been a really fun cameo to have many of them pop up, but I understand that scheduling conflicts do happen, and that some of them just were probably done with the character, considering that they were not going to be renewed for another season. But At least this one we received, and I was happy with it. Number 4, Dorothy the Momager. I feel like Dorothy has received a lot of flack regarding her role in the previous 2 seasons, and though she is not painted in any better light in this season, as we do see that she really did have a troubled relationship and was not necessarily the best mom to Trish growing up, we do learn that her intentions were potentially pure. Again, representing that whole theme of everything regarding this season, that she went around trying to do the right thing in the wrong way. Though when she does realize the wrong she did to Trish is not able to make up to her in the way that she feels that she needs to, sought to do better with others. And we saw that really played out in the funeral scene, and we see everything that she has done with others in the industry. This allowing Trish to kind of fully forgive her mother for everything that happened between them and understand what her mother's true motives were. And we do kind of learn that she herself was a victim in the past, giving us a lot of rounding out of the character and her own backstory before we ultimately see the character pass in the season. Now, I do wish that we had got to see her true confession and what it was that Salinger got out from her, and I was a little disappointed that he did not reveal this when Trish confronted him on it. However, through the action of the season, we do get to kind of get an idea of what her truth really was. Number 3, Jillian the assistant. Now, this was an awesome new character, and I was left wanting to have had her the entire duration of the show. To have her kind of come in at the end as a last-minute addition to the roster of characters that Jessica Jones offered was really disappointing for me. I could have had her a lot more, not only in the action of this season, though I do admit I can't really see where we would place her in, as she was perfectly used whenever we saw her, but more so I wish that we'd had her the entire time. Now, what a great character and what a great amount of story and character development we got from her, though, in this season without her really having to play a major part in the overall action, which just shows what a great portrayal of the character there was in the season. And again, I could have had her since season 1 and been very happy. Number 2, Mindwave's update. Now, as I mentioned with Trish, things do change from the comics to the film adaptations, and Mindwave is one of those. And I really enjoyed his adaptation, as it made him a lot more relevant to the story, and considering he is somewhat of a minor character in the comics, unlike Hellcat is, it is okay for us to get a lot more tweaks to his power set. We come in not really knowing who he is and having an idea of what he should represent. And I will say most of his tweaks were done in the positive, whereas I thought most of Trish's tweaks as Hellcat were problematic. Now, in the comics, of course, Eric relies on a helmet of sorts for his Mindwave abilities, and though I was disappointed we didn't get any reference to this helmet in the show, I felt like the helmet would have been a gimmick that really wouldn't have allowed him to seamlessly fit into the storyline. And also, yes, his powers were the true embodiment of the theme of the season and was part of the issue I had with said theme. I did enjoy them, making him very relevant to the story and very useful not only for Jessica Jones, knowing that he can have a lot of use moving forward with his new partnership with Costa. Now, I hope great things for the character, and he is one of the characters that I feel is not resolved all the best. I would like to have seen more of what happens with him next. But again, this is what we always are kind of left with sometimes in these stories without just having killed everyone off, so I understand it. But I really liked his update and how his powers became more of an empath power set for this adaptation. Number 1, a human villain. The Marvel Comics have no lack of superpowered baddies to have Jessica Jones go up against, and to have her go up against another one in this season, as she has in the previous 2, would have made perfectly good sense. However, there was a very particular choice to go with Salinger, aka the Fool Killer. Though, yes, he is very messed up and very potentially mentally damaged, he is, albeit very human and mortal, having no real superpowers of his own, just a very twisted sense of morality. Now, this was something that was very interesting and played a kind of a fun role within the whole story of Jessica Jones, with the media and other characters kind of questioning while she was so avidly going after just a normal bad guy, where they believed her role as a super was to go after these super villains, and for her to actively pursue this whole kind of normal villain, everyday bad guy was something that kind of played into the distrust of everything that was going on with Jessica, making it seem kind of like a vendetta for her. And I think that it was also a great choice because it allowed us to show just how mortal these characters are, that ultimately this just plain human was able to do some of the most damage that we saw in the season's runs of Jessica Jones, her receiving substantial downtime and losing an organ and all that due to just a simple stab wound from a normal guy. And I think that really plays well into the ending of Phase 3 as a whole and the first 10 years of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, considering we not only learned this about her, but we learned that there is a mortality to all of our heroes, with both Captain America and Tony Stark bowing out at the end of the phase as well, and showing us that these characters are human as well and are ultimately subject to that kind of resolution and potential humanity of death. Overall, I like the season as a whole, but isn't my favorite of the Jessica Jones franchise? No. I would probably actually put it third in that list, really liking season 1 and 2 a lot better. I also have to admit there is a little bit of an unfair bias here, because I do really enjoy Jessica Jones as one of my more preferred storylines from the Netflix kind of partnership, and I have really enjoyed her storytelling and her character's point of view within that context. So yes, I probably favored a little bit more than I should because of that. However, I would love to know what you think of the season. Let me know down in those comments your favorite and least favorite aspects of the season as well. Now, this does wrap up my Jessica Jones story and everything I have to say about it for this season. I am planning to go back at some point and do these for season 1 and season 2 as well. When that will happen, I am not sure. Plus, I do have a few kind of follow-up videos and theories that have come from this and how it can still relate to the greater MCU, as it is still part of that greater storytelling that we know and love from Marvel Studios. In the meantime, though, I love you all 3,000, and I hope you have a marvelous rest of your day. Bye, friend!